and we're underway and racing. Stay on the brakes, goodness me, what a launch! The outside of turn 1 and takes the lead of the race.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome along. Another round of your APC season is upon us, and we are here around Interlagos for the Brazilian Grand Prix. My name is Joseph Black. I will be taking you through tonight's action alongside Owen Boldero. Good evening, Owen. How are we looking forward to this Brazilian Grand Prix?
Away from the racing, we have two DRS zones, both really solid overtaking opportunities, especially into turn 1 and 2. You see a significant amount of the side-by-side action on that DRS straight. Plus, there's always a drag race to the line. We saw it last season. There was a freeway battle for the win with Lewis Smith, who sadly no longer races with us, finishing second on the very last lap on the very last straight. So it always provides good racing in the APC, and I'm very looking forward to it.
It certainly should be a good race. Of course, Brazil always throwing up an exciting round of racing, and once again, we are here in APC to take you through some action for the 11th time this season, round 11 of 14, and last time out sprint weekend, but it was certainly a very, very exciting one with, a wet, dry sort of strategy battle in the race. And in the end, we had, don't know what that was, a very, very good race. But yeah, we should hopefully be getting something very similar to that this evening. And, we'll have to wait and see, shan't we, to see whether we will get something along those lines. Just remind you then of the calendar that we have coming up. So not only do we have the this Brazilian Grand Prix this evening, afterwards we will be heading down to up even to Las Vegas more specifically, and then Qatar and Abu Dhabi, the last two rounds of the season, to finish us off for what has been pretty good season, all things considered, especially if you're Andrea Chenkovan. Yeah,
definitely. And one thing to monitor about Brazil, considering it's Brazil, we could see another wet race. You see it in real life and in the game. The chance of rain around here is very, very high. I've raced in some seriously wet races in F1 24 on Brazil. One that stands out to me, I remember, it started on slicks, and literally within the first lap, we were all in for wets, for inters, and it went to full wets at one point. It was stupid how wet it got. But yeah, it's just such a high chance here for rain that it definitely can play a factor in a race here.
Yeah, rain would always throw something into the mixer. Of course, we've had a decent amount of rain so far this season. I think it's fair to say. I think we've had at least 3 or 4 rounds where that has been on offer, and not only have we had rain, but we've had a multitude of drivers racing in the series, and we've got 2 more joining us this evening we've got Jack Weaver, no relation, and alongside him as well will be in the Haas, Brad Gibb. I believe you know at least one of these drivers pretty well. What do you reckon they're capable of?
I don't necessarily know them too well. I was just involved in the trial, so I've seen a little bit of what Brad and Jack can do. So they fit very well into the grid. They're sort of on the pace of pretty much the entire grid. Maybe a little bit off the top, off their friend George Chapman, because George Chapman is the person that has brought them in. But they will add to the spectacle of some great racing, especially around a circuit like Brazil, where we're going to see a multitude of drivers that you wouldn't ordinarily see in a DRS train together in a train, just because of how powerful DRS is.
Yeah, and we can bring you the action here in Brazil here tonight for another round of your APC season. And, most, if not all soon, of the drivers are out on circuit. Only Ethan Shackleton and Brian Moore still in the pit lane. But but there you go. You can see Brad Gibb, George Chapman, Dan Riley, Connor and Kyle Stewart Woodard, Jack Weaver and Andrea Chenkovan out on the circuit, ready to begin their push laps. We're going to go on board then with Dan Riley. Owen, take us through a lap of the Autodromo Jose Carlos Pache.
So here we are in turn one, tight left-hander down to third gear, little step of oversteer, managing to control it, and then full flat round here, maybe touching a little bit of the curb, depending on whether you have traction control on or not, you can touch that curb. And then DRS down to turn 4, rolling in down to 5th gear, left-hand corner, making sure not to invalidate your left hand there, and then you've got a straight run to this right-hander, maybe just a downshift. If you're feeling confident, if you're not, you stay in 7th gear. And then rolling it immediately into that right-hander, 2nd gear, and then again throwing it straight back in. Such a left-right, middle sector, as then rolling it again to this right-hander, 2nd gear, and then you're probably going to be using a little bit of ERS here just to propel you through, since there is no DRS on this section. This corner is really painful because that curb is deadly. If you hit it too much, you are going to lose a lot of time. Dan Riley didn't do that in this case, as he now powers it down to the DRS open, and he will power all the way to the line for our first banker lap of the session, and it is a 108.204.
And George Chapman demonstrating the pace that he has had the last couple of times with a 107 to go up ahead of Dan Riley. Apologies for any tech issues that we may well be having. They are completely my bad, and I'm trying to fix them on the fly as per usual. So apologies if there was any echoing of Owen, and then you couldn't hear me right at the end of that lap. Brian Moore and Ethan Shackleton are out on their first laps. Brian is on a set of the medium compound tire. Did anybody else actually set a lap on the mediums? They did. George Chapman set a lap on the mediums. To be that far up, as Brian Moore invalidates, to be that far up on a set of mediums is absolutely crazy, isn't it?
A 107.6 on mediums is stupid. That's going to be what most people are doing on soft tyres. That's actually incredible to do that on medium tyres, so fair play. And it looks like he's recharging a little bit. So is he going to go for a second lap, or is he going to be into the pits? There's some weird stuff going on between him and his mates.
I think potentially he's going to be coming into the pit lane to try and go again on another run, you would think, at least, as around the final corner he comes. And actually, he's going to come into the pits. He didn't recharge enough, in his opinion, to go again. Dan Riley is trying to go for another lap, and well, not a bad start, but he's 2/10 down, so could be improved as he heads through the 2nd sector now. But yes, it's going to be a very good showing, I think, from Dan as he heads through. And I try and sort out the audio balancing, because of course I know we love hearing the roar of the engines, but sometimes it would be quite nice to be able to hear either one of us as well. Dan Riley, what can he do in the 2nd sector? He can't improve, and I think he may well back out of this lap as he comes around the final corner. 3/10 down. Ethan Shackleton in the 2nd sector, currently looking pretty good and pretty close to the edge. You have to really try and push close to the edge, don't you, here around Interlagos?
Especially in qualifying. It's usually such fine margins due to how short the circuit is. I've seen qualifying sessions go down to the wire with some as little as 10,000ths of a second. Back when I was still racing at APC, here at APC, the pole margin between me and previous racer Montserrat Reversi, runner-up last season, it was 13,000ths of a second. It was very, very close. So qualifying here has the potential to go down to the absolute wire, and with drivers such as Andrea Chenkovan and George Chapman, who are fairly similar on pace, it definitely has the potential to do that in this session.
Yes, well, we'll see how it goes throughout this race. We should be getting some pretty exciting racing on our hands, and I've just what's just happened. I think I may well have disconnected from the session.
I've been kicked as well.
So I think it may well be a lobby restart potentially. As
I think I think we're all still in the game because I can still see everybody's names, but I can see AI as well.
yeah, that's
AI has just been checked in, and also and Andrea Chenkovan's just thrown it into the wall. Same as Ethan Shackleton, he's on the grass as well. So not too sure what's going on here.
no.
Let's have a look at the chat and see what's going on there.
Can't see anything going on. Anybody saying anything about what's going on, but everybody seems to be leaving the session, so we're going to throw it back to just quickly the cam screen. Let's have a look at the stream card for the 11th round of our season. As I'm really not sure what's going on. Lobby restart 100%. I know that part, but everything else is sort of up to interpretation. But yeah, it's very interesting stuff. I don't think I've ever had that glitch before.
Nor have I. And the session, not only did it kick us all and into different sessions, but it also added AI. I've never seen that before. Usually, when something happens like that, Carl said he had to restart his game for controller issues. So why has it just restarted the entire session from the 18 minutes for me? Such a weird glitch.
Love it. Love this game. I might just give you the stage now to just have a moan about the game.
Well, there's not really too much to say, is there? I think I've said everything I need to say about this game. How they haven't fixed glitches that have been in the game for 3 years, I don't know. That's all I'm gonna say.
Well, welcome to F124. But we're having a debate currently as to whether we're going to be going once again on our laps, or whether we're just going to do one-shot quali, go again. We'll see what ends up. I think one-shot qualifying sort of has to be the way that we go. I mean, we got about halfway through that session, and yeah, because we had about 12 minutes left, so we were about we're about a third of the way through qualifying. So definitely reason for going again. But yeah, it's yet another thing to happen to EA. Well, two different polls coming out. Wonderful. Anyway,
I've just set one up as well.
There we go. Are we allowed to vote? That's what I want to know. But yeah, should be. I
would imagine not, since we're not drivers, we're commentators. I'd assume it's just for the drivers. And right now it looks like restarting quali is going to be restarting short quali is going to be what's happened, as it's 5-3 at the moment.
Yes, I mean I can view the votes. That's exciting, but yeah, there's just the game shenanigans going on with everything happening with the game. It's always great to see. We've got of course lots of action to come in APC this evening. Of course,
when the game works.
Well, hopefully the game is going to work at some point this evening. That would be wonderful. But
it will work when we move to 25. Hopefully.
Well, you know what? 25 has been designed by the same people who designed 23 and 21. So I have some hope. Although I didn't like 21 because I couldn't drive, but I do certainly have some hope.
Yeah, and I mean, I have played 25. I think I've said it on stream, but it feels like a happy marriage between 23 and 24. It's got the sharp noses of 24, but it's got the sort of more stability of the car that 23 had. So, from what I played in the beta, I played probably about 10 hours total. I liked it. It's definitely an improvement from 24, but that's not hard.
No, especially with the opinions that you have about this game. And well, we'll be getting underway very soon. We're all back into the lobby, and we are just getting ready to get underway once again for your Brazilian qualifying. Apologies for that one. There are issues on EA's end. I always blame EA. Never ever blame Codemasters, in my opinion, as well. It's ending up being one of those games of sheer. Oscar Piastri's joined the session. That's exciting. But I don't imagine he'll be in for too long. He's got things to do. He's got the Imola Grand Prix to prepare for this weekend. In fact, I think it is. It is. Yeah, it's this weekend. Very exciting. He will be on the way. I know they generally get there on Wednesday, so probably not. But he's certainly going to be preparing for it. But anyway, he's decided to in order to prepare for Imola, he's going to join APC for an evening. I mean, we are pretty quality, I will say that one. But yeah, it's a great game, and well, it's got Oscar Piastri's vote. So there you go. Right. In the meantime, just a little thing that me and Mr. Stewart Woodard have planned. We're just going to have a quick little look at what happened in Season 6 when we went to Brazil.
As soon as we get a quiet moment, but it seems that Shackleton could well be launching an attack on Owen Boldero heading into turn 1. 8th gear, we could go 3 wide as Boldero thinks about the send, and there's contact, and goodness me, Reversi has saved it. How has he managed to hang on to that one? It's caused carnage, it's caused chaos, and Ethan Shackleton moves his way up in a 2nd place. Boldero is washed out wide, and here comes Lewis Smith, but into the barrier goes the Aston Martin. Goodness me, safety car deployed as Lewis Smith narrowly moves his way in a 2nd. Ethan Shackleton somehow picked up the pieces and leads this race. But what has happened to Owen Boldero? How was he sent spearing off into the barrier? I'm going to call it again. I think that one's going to be ending up on social media.
So, Owen Boldero, thoughts?
Well, realistically, not too much to say about it. I was gutted at the time because my pole lap was so good. My pole lap, I actually don't think I was conscious whilst driving that because I beat my time trial time at Brazil by over half a tenth of a second. I couldn't find anything on it, and then in short quali I go and beat it by half a tenth. I was like, well, where the hell has that come from? And then heading into the race, I remember just feeling the car being too heavy. I just didn't feel like I had any pace, which is why once we're at Reversi, I just couldn't keep up, it seemed like. And then I outbraked myself into turn 1, hit the back of him, and that let all hell break loose. And then, as we're coming round turn 3, Lewis Smith, we're in a free ride, Lewis Smith moves over to the right, hits me and just sends me barrel rolling into the barrier. Realistically, if I'd have reported it, he probably would have got some penalty points for it, but I didn't bother reporting it. I was out of the race. There's no time pens in this league, so I just thought, what's the point? But yeah, gutted at the time, but not too bitter over it now.
Yes, it's one of those things that you do just sort of, have to let go eventually. But
yeah, definitely,
it's certainly not always great when something like that happens to you. We are, by the way, getting underway once again for qualifying here in Brazil, and well, drivers are back out on circuit, or they're getting back out on circuit. Dan Riley and Brian Moore, the first couple to come out in this session, and well, do you reckon the practice they've had in that first qualifying session is going to help them?
Well, yeah, 100%. It always does help. I've noticed it. I did a little bit of. I can remember from some league races, I did like a mock qualifying session just to see what I was doing, and then I'd end up going like 3 tenths faster generally. So it definitely will help them since they've got a feel for the track, and it's very similar conditions to what it was in that first qualifying. So it definitely will help them.
Yeah, it should. It should do, and well, we'll have to see as to whether anybody's able to match George Chapman's lap. Mediums, by the way, is what he set it on, and he's out on mediums once again. So is Chenkovan, and so as well is Weaver. So they're just going and trying to show off at the moment as Brian Moore heads out onto the circuit. and heads out across the line. Dan Riley across the first line to start his first push lap of the evening. Never happened before where we're going around the Brazilian circuit, but Dan Riley once again trying to beat whatever it was, a 108.8 I think it was that he set in that first session. And he comes to the end of the first sector looking, it says it's purple, but again, many things going on with this game, that being one of them. Dan Riley heading through the second sector now and just trying to throw the car as much as he possibly can onto the curbing. Big slide for Dan Riley, and that's put an end to any sort of competitive time the Kick Sauber can do. He may well head through, but it's not going to be anywhere near where he would have expected. George Chapman now in the second sector mediums. We'll see if he can beat his 107.6.
Yeah, and just another thing to add to what you were saying, right after Daniel Riley went through the first sector, it told Kyle he was purple, so you just can't trust the telemetry on this game.
No, it's a great game. Great game, the best game, some may say. And yeah, it's certainly had its teething issues. Dan Riley, though, 108.3, so I think that may have actually been better than his first time. Chenkovan, 107.8. Up to the line comes George Chapman, and he's going to go 107.9, so 0.3 slower than his last lap. Chenkovan has that provisional pole.
Yeah, just struggling a little bit, maybe. That first lap was so good. Like I've never seen a 107.6 on mediums from somebody on console. I'm not sure if he's on controller. If he's on controller, that's very good. But yeah, still 107.9 on mediums is nothing to sniff at.
It's one of those things you can tell, I think, by the way they turn their steering wheel. So he looks as though if it's really smooth, he's on wheel, and it does look to be quite smooth. And if there's no dead zone in the middle, then he's definitely on wheel. But yeah, it's one of those interesting battles, mediums versus hard. Oh, no, not mediums versus hards. Well, that is sometimes an interesting battle. I'm thinking of the difference between steering wheel and controller, and I think for these drivers it is certainly an interesting debate to have, especially at this sort of level, which is almost pro, not quite. It's interesting to see the difference between the two, the controller and pad.
Yeah, and well, nowadays controller has a lot more freedom with customization. Like if I go into my controller menu, there are so many different calibration settings and things you can do. So here we are. If I just go into my controller settings, because I have custom ones, I can change like my steering rate, for instance. I have it turned up from 100 to 130, and then my steering dead zone is on 0. And there are just so many things you can change, for anything from brake dead zone to brake linearity, even then vibration and force feedback. You can change how much your wheel rotation is. Mine is really low. I'm on 270 at the moment. So there's just so much more customization for controllers than there was even 2-3 years ago. So it's definitely shortened the gap between controller and wheel. Wheel is still easier to do, hence why esports and things like that, wheel is the standard. But controller and wheel, the gap has definitely got smaller this game, and especially with the power of traction control this game, which there's a difference of not even 2 tenths between the two.
Yeah, it's as somebody who used to use controller and swore by it and then got a wheel, it's so much easier to be consistent with lap times. That's the main thing I struggled with on wheel, on controller, and that's the main thing that I would say I'm probably stronger at on wheel, is the consistency of the lap times. Just I'm able to bang it out lap after lap after lap. There's also allegedly some advantages to using pad in the first place, as Shackleton comes up to the line and goes 108.1, goes into 4th place. There is allegedly some advantages to using pad, some sort of phantom grip thing that I don't necessarily agree with, but yeah, apparently that's a thing which tries to narrow it down. But F1 2021 was the last game which was, I think, difficult on controller. Ever since then, it's been just not the norm, but much better to be on controller than it ever was before, because they've reduced that dead zone in the middle, so you can actually try to implement natural steering as much as you possibly can, even if it's not always successful. We can have a look now as that debate comes to an end. I think I've just nipped that one in the bud, but have a look at the drivers' standings. And, well, Andrea Chenkovan right up the very top, of course, 206 points, with Ethan Shackleton in P2 with 183. Kyle Stewart-Woodard leading up that battle for that third place at the moment, with Dan Riley down in fourth with 110, but he got closer last time out, and he should be trying to challenge. For Dan Riley, it's really a case now of just desperately trying as hard as you can to beat Kyle Stewart-Woodard, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I think Kyle is definitely going to be his target in this race.
Yeah, I think so. And, well, now that we have a couple of Haas drivers, the constructors get all the more interesting, with Ferrari up at the top with 389, McLaren in P2, 217, Kick in P3 with 192, and Williams in P4 with 181. So it's with another team in the mix, they're going to try and sort it out. Well, with another team in the mix, there's going to be less points on offer for those teams up above, so it could get scrappy towards the end of the season.
Yeah, and with that new team joining the mix of Brad and Jack, it just makes it a little bit harder to score some points for those that need it. So, for instance, Kick in their battle with McLaren, and then of course McLaren in that battle with Ferrari, so it just tightens things up ever so slightly at the top, and it also changes the dynamic of the constructors at the bottom.
It certainly does, and it should make all the battles much closer together now as we head towards the end of the season, and we're heading towards the end of the qualifying session. And Andrea Chenkovan has gone up to the top of the standings with a 107.5, 4 tenths ahead of George Chapman. Do you reckon he's got this one now?
I wouldn't say it's over. George Chapman has time to do, well, 1 or 2 more laps if he wanted to. He could go into the pits and still be able to do 2 more laps or something. So it's definitely not over. And at Brazil, it's never over until the qualifying session is officially over, no matter how far the gap is. Just because Brazil is such a difficult circuit to get right on the first try. And that's why I think George Chapman was slower on his next qualifying lap compared to his first one in that original session, just because Brazil is such a technically difficult circuit to get 100% right. As now he comes on to start his second flying lap, he's going to get a lovely toe.
He is, and that's really going to benefit him potentially. The Haas driver up ahead, trying to work with him, Brad Gibb, potentially with trying to help his friend out right up ahead. But yeah, they are working together as DRS is open for George Chapman. But he could face the same issues he did last week. No penalty, by the way, for the incident in between Kyle Stewart-Woodard and George Chapman for, well, what was it? Not necessarily a clean-cut incident, but it was one of those that was like he shouldn't have been racing through the final sector. He got pole anyway, so I'm sure he won't be too badly affected here, and he's close to that Haas driver up ahead. He won't mind, I think, the fact that the Haas driver is slow, because he is still quick, and it's not like Brad Gibbs that slow. I think he's been pretty good so far. George Chapman, 4 tenths faster than his previous lap time, or 3.5, as he comes around the final corner and will come across the line. Is this going to be a pole time from the Williams? He pulls out of the slipstream of the Haas, and they're going to come across the line side by side. That is Brad Gibb up to P3 and George Chapman up to the very top.
That toe definitely had an effect there. You could see it. I think that toe is probably what got him pole position. I don't think he would have had pole that. I think that toe was probably worth total about 2.5, 3 tenths. So really handy position for George Chapman to get himself in right behind Brad Gibb, and he takes pole position. Can Andrea Chenkovan respond as he comes on to his next flying lap?
Well, we would certainly hope so, as he tries to improve on that lap time that he set before, a 107.5, and he's not improving in that first sector. He's 0.022 down in that first sector, but he may well have had an absolute flyer on that previous lap, and he may well have lost time in the second and third sectors. Andrea Chenkovan has not got long to go in this qualifying session to be able to set a lap time to challenge George Chapman. In fact, he's got 5 minutes 30, so enough time for 1 lap, potentially 2, but now he comes around the second sector trying to improve. Is he improving? He needs to find 2/10 to challenge George Chapman's time at the top. It's across the line, and it is almost exactly 2/10. He would be ahead by 0.002 if he matched his final lap time with what he was able to do before. Andrea Chenkovan coming up to the line now, opening up the DRS, using all the ERS. Up to line he comes. Is it going to be a 107.3? It is indeed, and it's 0.5 faster than George Chapman. Andrea Chenkovan snatches it right back from the Williams.
Yeah, and this is what I mean about a qualifying in Brazil. You just can't say it's over until it's officially over, you know. Yes, just because of how short the lap is. There are so many chances to respond to a rival's quicker lap time than yours, and that's exactly what we've seen here. Andrea Chenkovan can still 100% get another lap in. He's got 4.5 minutes. And he's already nearly halfway around the lap, so Andrea Chenkovan and George Chapman both going for another one at the end of this session.
I'm sure they will be, and we'll see what they're able to do in comparison to their previous lap times. But it's a decent start for Chenkovan, and George Chapman has a little battle on his hands up the top, unlike what he's had in the last few rounds of the season. Apologies, by the way, for the amount of time that we spent in the pause menu this time, as for some reason, some unknown reason, the stream is still in 480p, despite the fact that I'm using a 1080p capture card. I'm in the maximum settings, and I have a 4K monitor, so there should literally be absolutely no problems. So I genuinely do not understand what's going on, but apologies for that nonetheless. And well, I've been trying to fix it all session long to no avail. We have about 3 minutes 30 left in the qualifying session, ready for the race to get underway. But some drivers are not ready for the race to get underway. They are just itching to get back out there. George Chapman, first of the lot.
Yeah, it's probably a bit early to go out, in my opinion, unless you're doing 2 runs. If you're just doing the one, as oh my word, somebody's crashed in the pit lane and retired, or not, sorry, just outside the pit lane. What has happened there? It's the Haas of Jack Weaver. What has gone on? He's stuck just after turn 1 and 2.
I am not sure what's happened there. Maybe he's done a Boldero down that straight. But yeah, really.
That would involve getting punted. That would involve getting punted, first of all.
He's punted himself off, and he won't be improving on a 108.137, which is only just ahead of Dan Riley and Shackleton. So he could see himself drop down to the 3rd row of the grid at the very minimum. And, well, really not ideal. His teammate is about to start a lap, Brad Gibbs, and may well get slipstream off of George Chapman on what could be their final runs. I'll be interested to see. Note they're going to go for another lap. They're going to try and burn that fuel, because the minimum fuel on this game is 2.6 laps. So if you can fuel save in one of your 2 warm-up laps, then you will be in and around exactly 1 lap, and that is absolutely perfect. So I think that may be what Chenkovan... Oh, not what Chenkovan, what George Chapman and Brad Gibb are trying to do.
Yeah, although I think it's probably worth it just to take that extra kilo of fuel, so then you can do another lap. Because if you do mess up your first lap, then you could just do that second lap straight off the bat. So I don't think a kilo is going to be worth all that much in a session. It will, of course, be worth a little bit, but it just gives you that insurance policy 100% of if you mess up your lap, you can do another.
Yeah, because why not? I mean, it gives you the chance to go on your final run. We've got a few drivers actually on their final lap time. Kyle Stewart Woodard in the first sector, and Brian Moore also in the first sector, having just come out of the first couple of corners. And actually, Kyle is in the second sector, so he is pushing on this lap, and well, he's already over a third of the way through this one, and he's going to try and improve on his 108.5. He's got drivers up ahead, about 3.5 tenths ahead. Shackleton just under, and Dan Riley just over. Oh no, I've done my maths wrong, but that's fine anyway. Kyle Stewart Woodard up to the second sector split time, improving by 0.2 of a second. If he can eke out around 2 tenths, he could have at least P6 in the bag. P4 though would be a very good position for the McLaren, with the quality of this grid improving race by race, and he's going to come up to the line with 108.246, so not quite the gains he would have wanted in that final sector, and so he remains in P7. George Chapman not improving in the first in the first sector, down by 0.126, and well, his friend Brad Gibb just in behind, looking to try and improve on the lap time that he set before. Around the final couple of corners, he will come, and he's actually improved by 0.2 of a second in that second sector. So it would overall be a 0.4 improvement that he's gained as the checkered flag is waved. The Williams is up to the line to be the first to set a time. It's a 107.337, and he's gone up ahead of Andrea Chenkovan by 2 thousandths of a second. Andrea Chenkovan, who is improving in that first sector, improving in the second, and well, we could be seeing the fastest lap time of all come out from Chenkovan if he doesn't mess up this final sector. It's a difficult one to mess up, and he comes around the final couple of corners to set a lap time of a 107.263. He's reaching limits nobody else has reached so far in this session, and actually everybody but Brian Moore have finished on their lap times now. Brad Gibb is 4 tenths off of George Chapman, 5 tenths off of Chenkovan, so demonstrates the pace that the Ferrari and the Williams have at the top. It would have been a fascinating championship battle if they had stayed, or if George Chapman had been in for the whole time, but as it is, Andrea Chenkovan takes that pole position, 7 hundredths of a second ahead of George Chapman.
Wow, that is some close stuff. I said it. Don't look away from a session at Brazil until it is over, because it goes down to the wire. And a 107.2 is a very, very strong lap. I think if you can get into the 107s around Brazil, you're doing fairly well. But what a qualifying session. And what a race that promises, considering how close it was here.
It was a very, very good session. It ebbed and flowed is the fancy way I would put it. And, well, up on top, Andrea Chenkovan. Pretty good lap time, all things considered, a 107.2. And we're just waiting for Dan Riley to get back into the pit box. And then we can get ourselves prepared, finally, for the race in Brazil. Have you got any early favourites, Owen? I was going to say, you can't be non-committal now, but yeah, there we go. There's Owen's prediction. Get your predictions in the chat down below. I presume that there's a few drivers who are racing in this session who will certainly want to be having their say. But yeah, why not? Have your say. All fine for me. We are getting ready for the race now. What preparations will the drivers be having in their mind as they get head towards the race day?
Good question. I think Brazil, the first thing you're going to be focusing on is your strategy. It's not likely there'll be a safety car at Brazil. I know there was one in Season 6 when I was racing, but that was not my fault. But I think if you're feeling really brave, you actually can pull off a medium soft strategy here. I think if we're talking preparations, they'll be working out what tyre strategy they want to do. Some will start on softs, and some will start on mediums. I don't think anyone will choose to start on the hards, although they could do, because if they don't feel they'll be safe on a soft medium or medium soft strategy, they could go hard soft or hard medium. So realistically, every single strategy round here is viable. It's one of the few circuits where all 3 tyres are actually a viable race tyre. So that's probably the main strategy I'd be doing in this 2-minute break, is sort of working out what tyres I want to use, just because all 3 are viable.
Yeah, all 3, I think, are a viable strategy to go with. We have a very interesting race on our hands, I think it's fair to say. And, well, we've got 9 drivers today, which is a decently sized grid, I'd argue, for this race. So I'm very, very excited for it to get underway, and it will do within the next couple of minutes here in Brazil, here in Interlagos, for round number 11 of your APC season. We have a couple minutes just to wait. It's beautiful sunny skies here in Brazil. I know you can't see it at the moment, but that's because I'm waiting for a response from Kyle to make a decision on something, and could hopefully, potentially, respond to my message. If not, then that's fine. We will get underway as is, and the race will be underway very, very shortly. We're going to the 5 red lights. We're not. It's the formation lap. Thank goodness for that, because we've still got some issues to sort out. But there we go. Right, I will just hop over and try and get Owen to join me. But yeah, thank you for sticking with us this evening, and we'll be underway very shortly. Owen, can you hear me? That's always a good thing. But I'm glad that we've got this formation lap. I love a formation lap. I think it's great. Right. Owen, are you able to hear me? And the issue is on my end. The issue is that I can't hear you. Wonderful. As per usual then. I know why.
Great.
There we go. There we go. It works. It works. Wonderful.
Yay, can you hear me now?
Indeed I can. And
okay, perfect.
just going to ride on board with one of the drivers.
Stream is out of 480p.
I don't understand why it goes in 480p. I can't lie to you. Application audio count.
Yeah, really, really weird. Really weird that it ends up in 480p, but at least we've got it in 1080 now for the race, so you can see the race in full HD.
Exactly. I blame F124 personally, and I know you probably would as well. But anyway, that's besides the point.
Question is, do we blame F124 or do we blame EA?
Well, that's true. I mean, we can blame EA for a lot of things, I think. Anyway, mate, this stupid thing. We've got another. You can
What's
see,
happened now?
You can see mine and Owen's overlay. Apologies for that one. You can see. How do I change that one? How can I change that one? Wonderful. Anyway, the 5 lights are going to be on very soon here in Brazil, and afterwards the race will be underway. The 5 lights are on here in Brazil. And the action's underway. Chenkovan tries to get off to a good start. George Chapman is going to pull alongside into the first corner, and he's going to pull ahead. George Chapman leads this race out of the first corner. There's somebody going off in the background. Kyle Stewart-Woodard has gone very far off of the circuit, comes back in last place. But for the car in 9th place now, that is an absolutely devastating start. Chenkovan is trying to get through, can't quite do so. Dan Riley and Jack Weaver side by side. Dan Riley making his way through. He takes P5 or holds on to it, and it's George Chapman who takes the lead.
Yeah, a really crucial start for George Chapman there. I think it's easier to start from P2 in this game, in my opinion, and at Brazil, than it is to start in P1. It just seems like you always get better drive starting from P2, especially at Brazil. And with turn 1 being a left-hand corner, you just have that advantage with it narrowing in on you. You can position your car in such a way that they can't turn in, but you can. So a really good start from George Chapman there, as Andrea Chenkovan looks to come back down this straight.
Yeah, Chenkovan wants to retake that P1 that he held earlier on, and he is certainly going to try to do so as they head down the main straight. As well, Chapman fastest lap of the race, of course, because he is the leader, but Chenkovan just staying in behind for now and not deciding to make that move for the time being. But yes, it is going to be a good battle for this race as DRS is enabled on the second lap of this one, and Chenkovan doesn't go for the move just yet. You've got a couple of packs separated already. Something's happened to Brian Moore and Connor Stewart-Woodard to make them back with Kyle at the back. But yeah, interesting to see that these packs have split already.
Yeah, I think what happened was, I'm not 100% sure, but I think Connor had a little bit of a snap, and then Brian was caught by Kyle so quickly. I was watching the Delta, and Kyle was past him by the end of the first lap, so not 100% sure what happened there. But here we are, coming down to the next DRS zone. We're expected to see Andrea Chenkovan pass George Chapman.
Yes, I think so, with the first full DRS straight on this circuit, down the main straight at least, as we of course had the run down to Desida de Largo. Chenkovan fastest lap of the race, banged in, as well as George Chapman up into, well, or down even, into P2. And, well, they have swapped. I'm expecting them to swap once again as they try to build up the gap to Brad Gibbs behind. Looking at the tyres, it's everybody on the mediums apart from Kyle Stewart-Woodard, who's on the softs. He meant to select the mediums and go with the norm, but he's having to go for an alternative strategy here today. Chapman holding on to that lead that he's just retaken off of Andrea Chenkovan, and Brad Gibbs just sitting in behind in third place. And he's looking to try and threaten these drivers. Don't forget as well, you've got Shackleton, Dan Riley and Weaver, as well as Gibb, trying to make their way into this battle. We've got a 6-car scrap for the lead at the moment.
Yeah, it's similar to what I said during the qualifying session. DRS is so powerful, you see drivers staying with other drivers that they wouldn't normally be able to. And it's going to be the same at Vegas next week. I mean, Las Vegas, DRS is just, it's so stupidly powerful because you have pretty much no wings. So with ERS and DRS, you're going nearly 220 miles an hour compared to about 206, 207 on somebody without DRS. So it's just so powerful, and the straight is so long that at Vegas next week we are going to be seeing some really close racing. As now George Chapman pulls out down the inside into turn 4. Really good move there, takes it back. At this phase they probably don't want to fight too hard, as they'll be looking to build a gap to the cars behind them.
Well, Brad Gibbs not listening to that advice. He goes down the inside line of Andrea Chenkovan and gets through up into P2 at the Haas. Just really now trying to stamp his authority on this race up into that second place, forcing the two Ferraris down into third and fourth, and he can launch his assault on George Chapman, making his debut here today, the Haas. And so far, I'd say he has certainly impressed as, well, Chapman goes around. He will lead into the 5th lap of this race. Brad Gibb in P2, though, as opposed to Andrea Chenkovan. A new challenger has just entered the 4 for the race lead. I said it was a 6-car scrap, and this is so quick to change here around Brazil. It is how quickly it changes. Jack Weaver down the inside of Dan Riley into the first corner, making the move pretty simple, but he slides on exit, and Dan heads out back through now. As they head down the hill towards the Desida de Largo, DRS will be open once again for both of these drivers, and it's down to who got the better run out of the Senna S. It's going to be Jack Weaver, as there's contact between him and Dan Riley. He tried to cover off the kick Sauber too quickly and potentially damaging the background. That may have just been a particle issue. I think it actually was. But the Haas moving up ahead of the kick Sauber, but crucially has dropped DRS. He's going to try and gain it, and I think he's going to gain it back. But that was close.
Yeah, I was just thinking I wouldn't particularly fight it too hard at this phase. The cars ahead, no offence to Dan Riley and Jack Weaver, they are faster. At this phase of the race, they need to try and stay with this DRS train at all costs because, well, come the pit stop phase, they could attempt an undercut potentially, which could put them in contention further up the grid than they potentially would be normally.
Yes, I think it's one of those things where they're trying to take the gamble, and we'll see whether it does pay off. Lap 6 of 36, and Chapman holds onto the lead once again, but Brad Gibb is closer as there's contact, I think, between Shackleton and Chenkovan. Either way, Shackleton lost the rear. Chenkovan just sort of had a collateral and dropped down to P5 behind Jack Weaver, and could drop behind Dan Riley as well. Not quite, but for the Ferrari, the championship leader, big issues there with his teammate, and he drops a position and drops a lot of time.
Yeah, and that's a lifeline for the Haas. For the Haas and the Sauber that were previously battling, as that loss of DRS is now null and void. If Jack can stay with Ethan Shackleton here, then this train will be well and truly back together. And with Andrea Chenkovan coming back through the pack, if they can follow him through, they can get back on the back of this DRS train.
Yes, they're going to try and get back into this DRS train as soon as they can. With Shackleton 1.3 seconds off of Brad Gibb up at the top. And his teammate Chenkovan trying to pressure Jack Weaver as they head down the straight. They'll both have DRS just about for Jack Weaver. It was about 9/10 that he had on Shackleton, and down the inside goes Chenkovan, trying to make the move back up. Not quite as brutal as Weaver himself was on Dan Riley, and he is punished for it as Jack Weaver just gets the exit but runs wide to give Chenkovan space, and hard but fair racing between these two, and Chenkovan back up into P4. Shackleton's gained a 10th on those top two in the last two sectors, and Weaver's trying to fight back. Chenkovan has gone round once again. I don't know if there was contact or not, but either way they've both gone round, and Dan gets back through.
I was on board with it. What happened was they were going side by side. Andrea Chenkovan on the inside, Jack Weaver on the outside. Andrea Chenkovan on that inside touched that left-hand curb at turn 4, and it just snapped his rear, and then it went into Jack Weaver. Jack Weaver snapped his back, and they just sort of magnet locked and went off. And that seems to have cooked Jack Weaver's tyres.
Was there contact between the two, or was it just it one of those things? Ah, there was. Okay, because it looks.
It was a snap from Andrea Chenkovan, which then put him into the path of Jack Weaver, and that contact took them both off the road.
Racing incident then potentially, because
racing incident.
It looked from my end at least, or from my opinion, like Chenkovan span round, Weaver panicked, and then also went round. But no, if there was contact, there was contact, and Chenkovan now trying to recover his race, but 3.8 seconds up to Shackleton, who himself is losing time to Brad Gibb. Not ideal. Chenkovan passed down Riley, and now sets his sights on his teammate up ahead. But I think this race is now going to filter out to the top couple of drivers, because Chapman, and from what we've seen from Gibb so far, don't have that much of a disadvantage as Chenkovan, as he's just, he's lost the rear once again. Some sort of setup issue potentially for Andrea Chenkovan, but he's dropped another position. He's dropped the rear once again, and he's really just struggling for grip around at least sector 2.
Yeah, and I think I know exactly what's happening here. The tyres around Brazil, sometimes certain driving styles don't match the tyres in this game. And what I think is happening is his driving style around here has cooked his tyres. I reckon his tyres are probably 108, 109 on the rear, which is just too hot for the mediums here. And in that second sector, with it being very cornery and some of it being full flat, he's just snapping the rear at pretty much every opportunity. So he'll be looking to get onto those hards as quick as possible from what we've seen.
Yes, I think he certainly will do, as, Chenkovan gets past Dan Riley once again after making that mistake, and Brian Moore picks up the first penalty of the race in his chase on Connor Stewart Woodard. For those two battling over 8th and 9th, Carl Stewart Woodard in an area of his own in P7, and Jack Weaver now sort of building up his own fortress in P6, not looking to battle forward or battle behind with the pace, matching that of Dan Riley and of Kyle as well. Looking up to the top two, as we head out one more time, we looked at the top two last lap. Brad doesn't seem interested in making a move. He just sort of seems happy to sit behind George Chapman for the time being, and they're just pulling each other along. But yeah, I think at the moment they are just working together as a team, and they're working together perfectly. However, I said they were doing that in qualifying, and they didn't. It didn't seem like they were doing so in the final sector. So it could just be. It could just be my opinion at least, and it could just be that Brad Gibb isn't quite close enough to make a move now, but it's certainly one that is developing.
No, I honestly think not battling right now is the smart idea, because Ethan Shackleton is only 2.1 behind as Connor Stewart-Woodard picks up a 3-second penalty there for track limits, but I think it's the smart idea just because Shackleton is lurking in the background. If something were to happen, you know, he'd be there to pick up the pieces. So build your gap, wait till after the pit stop phase maybe, and then battle it out.
Yeah, I think that's the ideal scenario for these drivers as they're trying to build up the gap to Shackleton. It's stayed around 2 seconds, but the fact that it's even up to 2 seconds in the first place is quite impressive. And they are just trying to build up that gap now, 2.1 seconds being the gap as they cross the line to start the 11th circuit of this race. And we are almost a third of the way through it already, so it's gone rapidly. I'll be interested to see, actually, when Kyle Stewart-Woodard comes into the pits, because he's losing time to Jack Weaver, but I mean, he's on those softs that he didn't mean to go, and he's not going to come in this lap, so he's going to desperately try and stretch them, but I'm not sure how long he's going to be able to take them as Weaver picks up a 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings. But yeah, Kyle is going to be really trying to push that tyre to the very limit. But yes, we are around a third of the way through this race now. And, well, these two up at the top, the closest of all, Connor Stewart-Woodard and Brian Moore, the second closest, but that is the battle for last, whereas this is the battle for first. And, well, George Chapman hoping to hold on to this lead. Brad Gibb literally just in behind by about 0.4 of a second. And Shackleton, he's lost 0.4 on that lap, demonstrating the pace advantage the top two have. Cenkovan's gained a second in the last around 5 laps on Shackleton. He's gained 2.5 seconds on Dan Riley. So for the Croat, he is bearing down on Shackleton.
Yeah, I think he's finally starting to use his paces up at the front. George Chapman has just had a massive snap of oversteer into turn 1. Don't say it, Joseph. I know what you were going to think. You were thinking, but yeah, Andrea Cenkovan's pace at the moment is so quick. He's just finally using that pace. Maybe he's got used to the tyres. Sometimes you do feel with the tyres in F1 games, their initial graining phase is so bad. But then once that graining's over, they come back to you a little bit. So maybe that's what Andrea Cenkovan is feeling.
Yeah, it's. I think he's just now gotten a wrangle over that car, and he can now get used to it. Try at least to get used to it as they head through this race, and he closes that gap down to Shackleton. Shackleton, who's actually gained himself a 10th on Brad Gibb, who was probably broken the momentum by George Chapman's snap of oversteer into turn 1, which is why that gap has come down. But Cenkovan gaining ever further 0.4 on that last lap on Shackleton. So keep an eye on that gap, folks, as we head down the straight one more time. We're going to take a switch because clearly they're not going to fight us. Cenkovan is going to come into the pit lane. The Ferrari has dived in and will be the first driver to make a pit stop onto a set of presumably the hard compound tyres. Kyle Stewart-Woodard isn't going to come in, so he's going to stretch those softs longer than Kyle is. Then Cenkovan was able to stretch those mediums. But yeah, very interesting to see Kyle potentially reaching puncture range as Brian Moore gives Connor Stewart-Woodard a tap and now has broken the momentum of the McLaren. Looks around the outside line of the next corner and he ends up getting right on through. Connor just slotting in behind, and well, the battle for P8 wages on.
Yeah, a really close battle between them two. But in terms of Andrea Cenkovan, I think it makes sense for him to come in, because although he was gaining, if he wants to fire himself back into this race, get that lap of undercut on much fresher tyres, which forces the other two to respond, which George Chapman does, Brad decides to stay out. So it's going to be an interesting one. How much has Andrea Cenkovan gained on this lap, as he's also going to get DRS from Kyle Stewart-Woodard here?
Yes, he is going to get DRS from Kyle Stewart-Woodard, and he's going to go around the outside and up into P6 ahead of the McLaren, whose tyres are surely completely gone off now. Chenkovan moving up a position and up into P5, and now 4.6 seconds behind George Chapman. I think that's closer, isn't it, than he was the last time out? So he got a lap of undercut as there's yellow flags out. Brian Moore has had issues. He's hit the wall. Oh, no. Oh, that's unbelievable. There's a safety car out. Brian Moore, who is he's just spun around in turn 1 and lost his end plate, has then tried to recover himself onto the circuit, hit the tyre barrier on the left-hand side and retired himself. Not ideal from Brian.
I can laugh. I just want to confirm for the stream, I can laugh. Brian is one of my best mates. I can laugh at him for that.
Well, that's actually come at a perfect time for Brad Gibb, Ethan Shackleton.
Oh yeah, 100%. Anybody
Jack
that's
Weaver
not
as
come
well.
into the pits, anyone that's not come into the pits is coming in now. You're coming in for hard tyres. Although, if Kyle could go for mediums if he wanted to, mediums would make it 100%.
But does he want to do all that tyre management once again? Because he's clearly done a lot of management.
No, I don't think so. I think he should go hard here. And fair play to him for making soft go 14 laps.
Yeah, I mean, surely they were nearing puncture region as Jack Weaver loses a little bit of momentum in the pit lane because of the double stack, and Brad Gibbs came out side by side with George Chapman, but ended up having to slot in just behind Ethan Shackleton in 3rd place, Chenkovan in 4th, Dan Riley in 5th, and the only real driver to lose out in this one is Jack Weaver, who drops down to 6th place, but he's going to be able to gain with all that closing back in, and all the hard work that George Chapman and Brad Gibb did to build up that gap has essentially been undone.
Yeah, it has been undone, which is unfortunate. Came at a bit of an unlucky time for Jack Weaver and Andrea Chenkovan, people who came into the pits. Bit of unlucky timing, and George Chapman, although luckily George Chapman was able to come back out in P1 there. So all of the chaos from the initial sort of first 10 laps, all null and void now, and the pack are back together.
Yep, and they're going to be scrapping for the next few laps when the safety car comes in. But first, we have to wait for the McLarens to catch up, with Kyle and Connor both coming in for a set of the hard compound of tyre, and George Chapman up at the top of the field. He's had 1 lap extra on those hards. How badly is that going to affect him, as it was a racing lap as well?
Not that much, in all honesty. It's probably like 1% or 2, if that. So I don't think it's going to have that much of an effect on the race. I think if it was like 5 laps, I'd be like, yeah, there'll be an effect. But I think a racing lap won't really make too much of a difference.
Yeah, Chenkovan with another lap of racing under his belt, but yeah, shouldn't make too much of a difference. It's all about tyre warm-up now, as you can see. Most of the drivers driving down the straight, weaving, and Jack Weaver in the background. Ironically, the driver you think would start weaving, just sort of sitting there going, what is everybody else doing? Doing a Kimi Räikkönen down at the back of the field, but he's certainly had a topsy-turvy race, hasn't he, Jack Weaver?
Yeah, it's been up and down, of course. He's dropped down a little bit after that contact with Andrea Chenkovan, but now that the safety car is out, it's a new opportunity for him to recover his race.
It is, and it is going to be as you say, a new opportunity for him to recover his race. He had the pace. It's just he dropped out of the DRS, and it was absolutely devastating for the Haas driver because DRS around here is so important. Because as much time as you can gain in these corners, the double dose of DRS that you get down onto the straight and then out once again onto the run down to Desida de Largo out of the center S is huge. Safety car in this lap, and George Chapman will be leading us away. Brad Gibb in P2, Ethan Shackleton in P3, and Andrea Chenkovan in 4th place. Dan Riley in 5th, Jack Weaver in 6th, and Carl Stewart-Woodard and Connor Stewart-Woodard rounding out your field. 8 drivers for the APC League, the Almost Pro Championship ready to get underway and racing. George Chapman goes early, and he's gone already. The Williams gets us underway for racing here in Brazil once again. Shackleton looks to the outside line of Brad Gibb. Can he make his way through? Long way around the outside as Jack Weaver looks to the inside of Dan Riley into the first corner. And they're going to be side by side as they head through the S's. Weaver compromises entry into the first corner for the exit out of turn 3. But he's been boxed in by Dan Riley, and now Carl Stewart Woodard goes for the overtake. He gets through on 1. Could he get through on 2 down the inside into Desida de Lago? He's going to try it, and Dan Riley runs wide. Opportunity for Kyle that he doesn't quite take as Dan cuts back onto the circuit, breaks Kyle's momentum, and back into it comes Jack Weaver. He's up into 6th place now, recovering the position that he had. Carl Stewart Woodard late send to the inside of the S's, makes his way back through, sweeps around the outside. Jack gives him the position, but a little flurry of racing there between those 3 has already cost them DRS. Connor Stewart Woodard in the background as well, looking to get involved. Dan Riley 1.2 seconds behind Chenkovan as they head out of the final corner and head into the first DRS zone on this lap. Of course, it will not be activated until they head down out of the S's and down into turn 3. But for those 4 drivers, that could be absolutely killer. Just a little bit of scrapping, and what scrapping it was. Great racecraft. But Dan Riley needs to work hard if he wants to get back into the DRS, as well as Carl Stewart Woodard, who's just dropped out of it from Dan Riley.
Yeah, well, one thing to watch out for at the top, George Chapman has managed to break DRS on Brad Gibb, which is going to give the opportunity to Ethan Shackleton and Andrea Chenkovan to get an overtake on Brad Gibb completed. But electric pace from George Chapman on that first safety car restart lap after some battling further down the grid.
Yeah, this race is going to be interesting. It's now going to sort of split the 2 packs. I think Brad Gibb may well just make it a George Chapman up at the top. Solo run to the finish line as he is 8/10 back. It's flowing between 8/10 and 1 second at the moment. Chenkovan looking to the outside line on his teammate, looking to get through on his Ferrari teammate. Don't forget as well that they could potentially be in for a championship here tonight in the Constructors. Already winning it with 3 rounds to go after this one. Chenkovan looks to the outside line of the first corner, and well, he makes that move stick pretty cleanly. But yeah, the championship is certainly on, and with Kyle Stewart Woodard losing the position to Jack Weaver into turn 1, that is the only team that can stop them now. I think it was something like 1, 2 and fastest lap for Connor and Kyle, and no points for either Ferrari as well. So that's going to be a very, very good achievement for Team Ferrari on the final laps of this race. But there's still 17 to go, so anything could happen.
Yeah, still so much running to sort out this battle. It seems like George Chapman, in the end, after breaking DRS, maybe made a mistake or something, has not been able to keep that momentum, and that top 4 have managed to get back into DRS. With Dan Riley actually not lurking too far back in the distance. He's about 1.6, 1.7 behind, so if something were to happen between these guys, he'd be right back in this fight, and it would become a 5-way battle.
Yeah, anything, meaning quite literally anything at all. If they lost any sort of time, then it would easily get pounced upon by the cars behind. Fastest lap of the race goes to Andrea Chenkovan in his chase of Brad Gibb, and this race could be one of the best of the season so far, despite the fact that it's been dry running all race long, and an incident from Brian Moore allowed the perfect opportunity for Brad Gibb, Ethan Shackleton, and everybody 6th, 7th and 8th to dive into the pit lane, including Kyle Stewart Woodard off of the set of the softs, and he did so well to take them that long. But now they had an advantage in terms of the fact that they didn't lose that much time after all that in the pit lane, and well, they're just going to continue on now trying to scrap away with the cars up ahead, and Brad Gibb can really see this as being an opportunity for taking his first win on debut here in APC. Of course, George Chapman has only raced 3 races. First one he didn't finish. Ever since then, he has won. So to see somebody up there with similar pace to him, it's a great sight to see.
Yeah, George Chapman has been electric since he's come in, and with the addition of Brad Gibb to the grid, this pack has become even tighter. We've now got a pack of 4 up at the front battling for this race win, as it is really tight up at the front. Oh, tenths of a second splitting them all.
much of a margin in any way, shape or form. And, well, they're just going to continue through scrapping away as Chenkovan. There's a gap opened up on the outside line, but Brad Gibb just cuts it off. He did open up the gap, but then he shut it once again. And, well, for him, that was a gap, but not one that he ended up taking. But yes, we are looking at now at this battle for P1 that could really light up over the next couple of laps. They'll head around the final couple of corners and get ready to go once again and go at it on lap number what will be 22 in this race, as well, George Chapman won't be getting DRS. Gibb, Chenkovan and Shackleton will, and they'll head down the straight, open up the DRS now and try to close in. Chenkovan is closer than ever to the back of Brad Gibb, and our championship leader looking around the outside of turn number 1, but Brad Gibb covering it off. And Chenkovan, who looked to the inside line, didn't quite make that move and didn't take the line in the end. And, well, he's going to try and go for it all over again down the straight, looking for the inside. Brad Gibb trying to cover it off. Chenkovan sees that Brad Gibb keeps moving across and tried to duke him out. Did not work that time, by the way. In the meantime, DRS has allowed the other Haas to get past Dan Riley and move up into P5 for what could be a very crucial race in the battle for P3 in the Drivers' Championship. Dan Riley and Stuart Woodard, those two scrapping away at it, and Dan Riley actually picking up a 3-second time penalty. That's an awful time for him. Brad Gibb, 5/10 behind George Chapman now, and Chenkovan 4/10 behind Shackleton as well, waiting in behind.
Yeah, I think up at the front, it's going to be a battle of patience. Don't try to fix your race straight away. I think if you're the two Ferraris, you're going to wait to the final couple of laps, really. Because everything could go to pot in this final couple of laps. We saw last season Lewis Smith from 4th place end up finishing 2nd on the final lap. So anything can happen if you're patient and you pick your moves at the right times.
Absolutely anything could happen in this race. Well, apart from Owen Boldero being sent off once again. That happened 2 seasons ago. But it's still a potential for one of these drivers. But hopefully it's not going to happen. And George Chapman leading this one away as these drivers, they have actually very, very good racecraft as they've shown so far this race. Not only those top 4 drivers, but also those further down with, well, Kyle, Dan and Weaver having a great scrap in the last, well, the last little piece of action that we got after the safety car came out, or the first piece of action even, to be a little bit more specific. We'll head on to lap number 24. We'll be 2/3 of the way through APC round number 11. And George Chapman leads the way once again, looking to take 3 in 3.
Yeah, looking to take a 3rd race win in a row. But as we've said before, it's not going to be easy for him. As Andrea Chenkovan down the on the outside of Brad, not able to make the move there. He'll have a second bite of the cherry coming up to turn 4 though. As he's on the inside, ERS deployed, DRS open now, and he should get this move done here.
He should do, does he? No, he backs out of it, and Brad Gibb stays in P2 with Chenkovan just... He's been very tentative in these moves, which makes sense because, well, he's got 12 laps to do it. He doesn't necessarily need the race win, but P2 is the ideal place to be in with the last few laps of the race to go. So it makes sense just sitting in sitting in 3rd place and climbing up as well. We are heading around the final corner for the 25th time in this race. Few times longer if you count the qualifying laps and well, the pre-qualifying laps I'll call them, but of course nobody was left out of the race at all. Anyway, George Chapman up to the line for the 25th time, and well, Brad Gibb looking to be closer. Chenkovan not as close to Brad Gibb on this lap as he was the last, but he's still looking to threaten. Dan Riley gets past Jack Weaver with the DRS, and that looks like a perfectly respectable battle going on for that 5th place at the moment. Kyle making his way through, as that is our 2nd retirement and the 2nd safety car of this race. Potentially contact between Kyle Stuart Woodard and Jack Weaver. And, well, Weaver in the wall at turn 3. 2nd safety car of the race, 12 laps to go. this will make it even more intriguing. Is it time to come into the pits for the drivers? Connor stays out. We'll see whether any of them come in, because now the mediums will be viable.
Yeah, medium's 100% viable. At this phase of the race, you've got 11 laps to go, probably going to be 9 racing laps by the end of that safety car period, so medium's 100% viable. Softs, even if you've got a set of softs, you could use them.
I think so. It's going to be a very, very intriguing strategic battle, and it'll be very interesting to see if anybody comes in. Jenkovan and Shackleton will have to be very careful about it, because of course they're going to double stack. Into the pits comes George Chapman, Brad Gibb, Jenkovan and Shackleton as well. Shackleton may well be costing a lot here in this race, as he could drop down the field with a poorly timed pit stop, and Wallace hasn't been great times. And as well, in comes the McLaren, so the two Ferraris losing so much time, Shackleton especially losing a lot of time. I know the game's being a bit laggy, but Shackleton also moving over to a set of the softs, so well, very, very interesting call there. But yeah, mediums for most, and now Connor comes into the pits. He's watched everybody else come into the pits and he's decided that he's going to do the same thing. Shackleton's gone onto the softs. We'll see how that affects the last few laps of this race. And well, we're only going to get a few laps of racing, probably less than 10 as we cross the line, or it will almost guaranteed be less than 10 as they cross the line. I think it will actually be 9 racing laps to go. George Chapman has led this race for the entirety, I think, after turn number 1. But do you reckon he's going to be able to take it home? P2 seems like the ideal place to be.
Sorry, my mic cut out just then. What did you say, sorry?
Who's going to take it, basically?
Oh, I'm sticking with George Chapman. My money is still on George Chapman. My prediction hasn't changed. He's controlled this race so nicely since the start, so I think it will be him. Did they all box? I didn't see. Yes, they did box. Okay. Ethan Shackleton going on to softs. I think at this phase, softs are incredibly viable tyre. Significantly less tyre wear than Kyle will have been feeling in that first stint. So Ethan Shackleton could be very fast in this stint.
Yeah, I think he will be, or at least for the first few laps. I don't know when those softs are going to start to fall off, but he's going to try and manage them as much as he can. The least tyre warming he can do under the safety car, the better, although he does appear to be ignoring that rule, because he's doing a lot of tyre warming, in fact. He doesn't need to do any, because those tyres will warm up anyway, and as well, they are the easiest tyre to warm up on this entire, I don't fully understand why he's warming them up, to be honest with you, because also he's got that second sector to warm them up, but everybody seems to be doing so on the run down to Desida de Lago. We've only got a couple more corners to go, and then we'll be getting going once again. It's a very short and snappy lap, and now it's just about waiting for the race director to call this one a go once again.
Yeah, just some info for you. I have a big sheet of all with tyre wear, strategies and all that. I use it occasionally. The expected tyre wear around here on the soft tyres is 4.3%, and the expected crossover between the softs being worse than the mediums is about 6 laps. So with less fuel, I'd stick it to the crossover point to about laps 7 or 8 laps on the crossover period. So Ethan Shackleton sitting pretty, maybe.
Well, you've got to ping me that spreadsheet after the race. Anyway, the race is getting underway.
It's Discord server.
Oh.
It's a Discord server I'm in.
Oh, okay. Well, you got to pin me over that invite. It's even easier. You don't even need my email. Anyway, back to the action. George Chapman is ready to get us underway, and well, if anything, like last time is to go by. He will be very, very soon getting us underway. And once again, he does. George Chapman looking to get us back to green flag racing very quickly. Brad Gibb caught a little bit off guard, and Chenkovan looking to try and pressure into turn 1. Dan Riley looked to get past Kyle Stewart-Woodard. He gets a 10-second as they're 3 wide into the first corner. Dan Riley, Chenkovan and Kyle Stewart-Woodard. Kyle comes out in P3. Dan Riley picks up a 10-second time penalty for ignoring yellow flags, and I think he was just trying to go side by side with Kyle into the first corner, which is something you're not allowed to do at the best of times. You can get away with it, but Dan measuring it also wrong, and a 10-second time penalty to be added to his time at the end of the race, added as well to his 3-second that he got for track limits. Not a great time for the Kick Sauber, and well, he's just going to try and recover.
Unfortunate for Dan Riley, but a dream restart for Kyle Stewart-Woodard, who is now in P3. Can he maintain this podium? Of course, he's got the very fast Andrea Chenkovan behind him, and with Ethan Shackleton on those soft tyres, it could be hard for him to maintain that podium, pending he gets no penalties.
It could be very hard. Andrea Chenkovan looking around the outside of the final corner and getting through and up into 3rd place, but just over a second behind, gets down to just under a second behind as Chenkovan tries to push to get back into that range of Gibb and Chapman. By the way, Gibb running an incredible race. We didn't think that he was going to have the same pace as George Chapman. He's almost identically matched him, and with only a few laps left to go in this race, he's going to try and close right in now. Shackleton getting through on Dan Riley down the inside. Dan trying to fight back around the outside. He still feels as though there's something left in this race, and Shackleton, for him, he's just... I don't think it's fair to say the soft is slower, but it certainly feels that way.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of is tyre overheating. The prime window for soft tyres around Brazil is 95 to 99 degrees. So all I can think of is those tyres, even though we've just restarted, getting a little bit hot. And I think that will happen towards the end of this stint.
It certainly could do towards the end of the stint, but at the moment he is trying to close back in on Dan Riley as they head down the straight one more time. But I think he's going to be able to make this a move, but Chenkovan is going to try and make a move around the outside of Brad Gibb, who looks to the inside. Attack is the best form of defence sometimes, and he tries to attack George Chapman up ahead. Can't quite make that move, and he stays just in behind DRS, though. He's open for Brad as they head down to the Cedar de Largo, but doesn't make it as Shackleton gets back past Dan Riley, as I said, and tries to get back into the DRS range of Kyle Stewart-Woodard. This would be incredible for Kyle Stewart-Woodard's championship charge for P3 if he's going to be able to manage this one home and take P4.
Yeah, it's to see if he'll be able to take that P4. Ethan Shackleton, just... what's going on? He seems to be really struggling on those softs. I thought he'd be way faster. The only thing I can think of is those soft tyres a scrubbed set. Let's have a look. Were they scrubbed?
No.
No, they're new. That's really weird. I would have thought his pace would be a lot better than it has been so far, but just really struggling on those soft tyres compared to the mediums. As now here comes Andrea Chenkovan for an attack on Brad Gibb into turn 1.
Doesn't quite get that run into the first corner and stays in behind Shackleton. He's not within the DRS. He's going to try and get to within that DRS, but he can't quite do it. And well, Chenkovan looks to the inside. No, doesn't make that move once again. And just sitting in behind in the position for now. But yeah, these drivers are currently heading through the first floor of the second sector and trying to sort themselves out, trying to organise themselves. They are looking pretty alright in this race, and well, these top 4 are the ones in contention for this race, which I've said so many times across this one, but this time, instead of Shackleton, it is Kyle Stewart-Woodard. Don't forget, though, Shackleton's still hanging in there, just about within DRS, as they will cross the detection point, 0.974 being the gap, and so he will have DRS. Chenkovan getting past Brad Gibb, ready to launch an assault for that race lead. Looking down the inside, Brad Gibb looks to the inside line as well, swaps to the outside. Chenkovan on the inside, just trying to hold on to it. Brad trying to go around the outside, but he can't quite do it. His momentum is not great, and he stays in there. P3 is where Brad Gibb holds line, and well, for the moment the Haas has dropped down a position. George Chapman holds on to the lead.
Yeah, really good stuff there from George Chapman. George Chapman really, really fast at the moment. Andrea Chenkovan looking to capitalise on the DRS advantage, of course. Coming into the final lap, you probably, in my opinion, you want to be behind on the final straight. You want to be about three tenths behind coming onto the final lap of the final straight. So I think this race could go down to the wire in that sense.
It could come down to the wire, and of course it's going to come down to the wire. This could be the most exciting finish of your APC season, with George Chapman up at the top of the field. Chenkovan, your championship leader in P2, and Brad Gibb looking to make an impression in P3. Looking down the inside of Chenkovan into the first corner. Can he make it through? He squeezes the Ferrari wide, but the number 95 just holds onto it. And Chenkovan is holding P2. Could he try and launch an attack now on George Chapman down to Desida de Largo? Not quite yet, and he stays in behind. P2 is exactly where he's going to want to stay, and I think he could just try and hold this position up to the line and up to the final DRS zone. It's going to be a gamble whether he goes for that half DRS zone he's going to get before the checkered flag, or whether he tries to go for it down to Cedar de Largo. But I think one thing's for certain, and I think he's going to try and hold on to P2, not P1, until lap 36 and 36. Brad Gibb to the inside line, making a huge send. Does this one come off as he tries to squeeze Chenkovan? Chenkovan giving him a little bit of a bump, trying to command himself some space, and Gibb squeezing him once again. It's been successful for Gibb getting through. Chenkovan will not be happy, and I think coming down the straight, he's going to be a little bit less polite than he ever was before. Outside line for the Ferrari, trying to pick up the slipstream of the Williams, but in the end, Gibb slots his way through, and Carl Stewart-Woodard tries to involve himself in this battle as well. So the more they scrap, the more the McLaren can close right in. I don't even think these podium positions are decided.
Yeah, I think if you're Andrea Chenkovan now, you reset, use this lap to recharge your battery. The entire second sector, go on the recharge, because it's not over. With the nature of Brazil, it's not over until that checkered flag 100%. So I think if you're Chenkovan, you got to get on the recharge now, reset, and then go again on the final lap.
Yes, it's just about trying now to trying to prepare himself for said final lap. I think they've all been preparing their EOS tanks for this, for exactly this. 2 laps to go here in Brazil, and we are set for potentially the most exciting finish that we've had across the entirety of season number 8. Brad Gibb, Chenkovan, Carl Stewart-Woodard and Shackleton as well, all within DRS range. Dan Riley's just dropped it on Shackleton, 3.3 seconds behind. Chenkovan holds the inside line on Brad Gibb into turn 1, but if Brad Gibb is going to squeeze to the inside line, he's going to just force Chenkovan to stay in behind, and he does so. And, well, Brad Gibb couldn't quite tell whether he was trying to go for a move on George Chapman or trying to defend from Chenkovan, but in the end, both, well, one was successful, one was not. He was unable to get past George Chapman, but he was able to hold on ahead of Chenkovan, and now they head through the second sector with it all to play for. The penultimate lap of this race is heading through, and well, George Chapman up in P1 ahead of Brad Gibb P2, Chenkovan P3, and well, could there be a dart to the inside for anybody through there? Not quite, but they'll all be thinking about it, and they'll all be using absolutely everything as they head on to the last lap of the race.
Yeah, I think if you sit in second place coming up to this part of the lap, next lap, and you are within about 0.4 of a second, then you are very much in a good position to take the race win. But this is it's still anyone's. Anything can happen on this final lap. You know, we could see some heavy battling between George Chapman, Brad, and Andrea Chenkovan, and even Kyle or Ethan Shackleton could still take this win. So let's see what happens as we head on to the final lap of this race and what has been an amazing Brazilian Grand Prix.
Yeah, first 3 corners completed for Chapman, Gibb and Chenkovan. And DRS is open for Gib and Chenkovan. Chenkovan pulls to the inside line. Gib feels as though he has to back out. Chenkovan not only makes one move, makes two. Off the circuit goes George Chapman. Chenkovan gets back through into P1. Gib tries to go around the outside of the Williams, but he's squeezed so tight off of the circuit. Goes the Haas, and Chenkovan facing the problems that he had earlier when he was just struggling for grip. Once again, goes off of the circuit, hands P1, P2 and P3 away. Actually, he handed P4 as well, but Shackleton gave him the position back. Chenkovan has bottled this race victory, and now he's just got to pick up the scraps as they head out into the final braking zone on this circuit. George Chapman, who made a mistake on the final couple of corners of the first sector, has managed to make his way back up to the top. Penalties may be impending, but there's one thing for sure, and that is that the Williams is going to take 3 and 3. Brad Gibbs makes it a photo finish, and Kyle Stewart-Woodard takes a podium. Chenkovan holds on to P4, Shackleton P5, and then Dan Riley and Connor Stewart-Woodard will be the final finishers, but that was a last lap that lived up to its billing.
What drama, ladies and gentlemen. A championship leader Andrea Chenkovan dropping down all the way to P4 on the final lap. It looked like he'd made a move for P1, but just wasn't quite able to capitalise and finish that move off there. But what a race for Kyle. Out of absolutely nowhere, after being sort of P6, P7 the entire race, he finishes on the podium. But George Chapman, 3 in a row for him. And if he had have joined earlier in the season, I think he'd have been looking very good for the championship. What a race.
Yeah, it would have been Michael Schumacher levels of dominance, I think, up the top of the field. But incredible action on that last lap. And it was great to bring it to you in 1080p, as opposed to 480 as we had earlier. Anyway, British Barbadian on the podium. And, well, yeah, thank you for joining me this evening, Owen, for all of that action. And we'll make sure to see you in the next time. But, yeah, that is the end of round number 11 of your APC season. Potentially the best race that we've had so far. And George Chapman came out on top. After this race, we've got Vegas, Qatar, and Dubai, or Abu Dhabi even. That will round us off for the season. But what a race that was. It was filled with drama, and at the end of it, it was George Chapman that ended up coming out on top. But of course, he went incredibly wide into that into the Descida de Lago. He wasn't necessarily pushed off, but that is a decision for the stewards to make in the last. And I'm sure that it will be reported by somebody as they all try to scrap over those positions. We're going to have a little bit of a different screen. I've just gotten rid of myself. Anyway, we're going to have a little bit of a different screen to end us off for this race. Not the regular Brazil, but I can confirm. Ah, it's not fit to screen. Hang on. I can confirm that your APC championship winners for Season 8, or at least the Team's Championship, is Ferrari, Andrea Chenkovan and Ethan Shackleton, despite how that race went for them. Not right up the top, but it went pretty okay nonetheless. We are going to have a few interviews, of course, as per usual, before we round out for this evening's action. And, well, who should we pull in first? We're going to go from the back to the front, and that means that we're going to start with Dan Riley. Hello, Dan. Talk us through that race, please. I know it wasn't necessarily the best one, but it was certainly intriguing.
Yeah, I'm just absolutely speechless after that. I think we had a good quali. It was good. That was probably the best part about it, honestly. It all started good in the race. I mean, I felt like I made contact with everyone. I can't lie. Everyone. But what really annoyed me was those two safety cars. the first safety car especially, because I felt like I would have got a good result. But yeah, I'm just speechless after that, unfortunately. Yeah.
It is. It wasn't necessarily an ideal day. I think that's fair. I think that's fair to say. The safety car did throw up interesting strategy battles. Of course, I think is one way to put it at the very least. But yeah, how badly do you think the safety car affected your race in general?
I think it cost me the entire race. I can't lie. I'm not sure where I was finishing. If it was like P5 or something. And then I had the Haas driver behind me who was on like 4.7 seconds, and he also had a 3-second time penalty. I wouldn't have got another 3-second time penalty. Myself, I wouldn't have got a 3-second time penalty if I wasn't fighting in the second safety car. But yeah, I felt like I have lost a place, but more importantly, Kyle had a mega race. That's why I'm so disappointed. Somehow I got P3. Yeah, I'm really disappointed about that. But to be fair, he deserved that race. Yeah, it just everything went good for him, especially at the start. He actually had a really bad start. So GG's to him because he actually did a really good comeback. To be fair, but it's not what I want to see for my championship for P4, P3. So. But it is what it is. We got Las Vegas next, so hopefully we can outscore them then.
Yeah, I was gonna mention the championship battle and the potential P3, but yeah, you seem to have already covered it. So I have no more questions for you. Well done. Well done for keeping going today. I know it wasn't necessarily the easiest, and you still picked up some points. So could be worse.
Yeah, I mean, still picked up some points. I did want to get the fastest lap, but it just wasn't possible at the end. So yeah, it was just a disappointing race altogether. I felt like it could have gone so much better, but yeah, it is one of those things in racing. So hopefully we can have a better race next week.
Hopefully so. Well, we will certainly see you again next week in Las Vegas. Thank you very much for joining us today, and yeah, we'll see you next week.
Cheers.
I never know when to drag them. It always feels like such an awkward interaction to just be like, nope, bye now, and just not offer them the opportunity to say thank you. Anyway, that is completely besides the point. And well, who should we speak to next? We'll get Jack in here. We'll speak to Jack. Hello, can you hear me?
Hello.
Hello, right. So, I mean, it's going to be difficult to avoid.
Yeah, I know.
Potentially the incident as well was, but we'll get to that in a second. First off, how was the race in general? Talk me through it.
The race in general, I started off obviously trying to go for an overtake, then realised I had none in ERS on for the first 2 laps, so it was quite slow. And then I put it on. I was just struggling for every corner, like just sliding. My rears are just dying, and I just really struggled. Lost lots of time. But yeah.
Yeah, it was certainly it was certainly a very interesting race strategy-wise. A lot of people seem to be struggling with their tyres. You just mentioned it. Was that the main thing with the race, just the tyre management?
I would say I had 2 incidents as well where the Ferrari, like I don't know what, the Cernak or whatever his name is. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but yeah, one of them I was behind him and he half spun, which I went with him. He collected me, so I went off the track, lost lots of time on that lap, which caused me to lose a lot of time in the first stint of the race. And then the second crash was Daniel went down my inside. He didn't accelerate enough out of the corner, which caused me to go into the back of him and go straight into the barrier.
Yeah, it's what certainly was not an ideal situation, but I think you made the most of it, and well,
yeah,
it is what it is. But yeah, first race in APC. What are your thoughts? First off,
obviously, I wanted it to be better. I mean, congrats to Jamie, Brad, and Kyle for the podium. Yeah, I'm disappointed in myself, to be honest. Feel like I should have done better. Obviously, could have done without the incidents. I just could not find pace today. Don't know what it is. Obviously crashed out in quali as well, so I haven't had a really good day. But yeah, disappointed really. That was my first race thoughts.
Yeah, that's it's one of those things, and I'm sure you'll be looking to come back better. Las Vegas seemed like your circuit to come back.
Oh, I love Las Vegas, so be a good race. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, we'll see as we'll head into the next week. But yeah, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again next time.
Cool. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much. Almost just dragged myself. That wouldn't have been a great one to do. That would have been the worst case scenario, because then it's like throwing myself into a pit of lions, and they're all baying, and also slightly confused as to why I'm there. Anyway, this is what happens when it's myself running the interviews and Owen's not here to tell me to shut up. Anyway, we shall go next to I'm desperate to keep Kyle to last, just because he's going to have some very strong opinions about this race. So we're going to go instead to Brad. Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Hello.
There we go, you can hear me. Right. I mean, a thriller of a race, I think it's fair to say. Talk me through it.
Yeah, pretty, interesting race. A lot of pressure from the Ferraris, and to be fair, it was a great race by me and Jamie. Good, wouldn't say teamwork, but, holding up the Ferraris and all that. But overall, yeah, good race.
Yeah, it was. It certainly did look as though it was a good race. All things considered. That last lap, we got to talk about it. Thoughts? Yeah. What happened? What happened from your perspective, at the very least?
What, with the Jamie and Ferrari, or just the overall lap?
Yeah.
Well, it was a bit of an interesting lap. I knew the Ferrari would go for the move and all that, so just made sure he wouldn't get past. And then he was a bit chaotic with him and Jamie, but it took the opportunity. Obviously, spun, got past, and then it's just really a race to the line, and unfortunately, just missed out on the win.
Yeah, it was 0.072 seconds the gap between you two at the end. So, it was close. One more lap, you reckon you've got him?
I'm not too sure, to be honest. I don't know if I would have sent it. Just the risk, and overall, there's not much point just risking points just for a few extra. So maybe not. Depends on the situation.
Yeah, well, it's it's still almost maximum points in your first race in APC. So
yeah,
you gotta measure yourself, and the guy in front of you got 3 and 3 at the end of the day. That's hard to sniff at. So pretty good debut from yourself.
Yeah.
I'm going to let you go now. I'm going to drop you back into the waiting room. And, hopefully see you next week in Las Vegas.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Oh, race winner or Kyle? Race winner or Kyle? I'm going to go with the race winner. He's talked about race wins too much with us. And he's going to talk to us about some again. George, talk me through that.
Hello. Sorry, I didn't hear that first part.
That's fine. Just talk us through the race in general and what happened. I know it's very interesting strategic-wise. And then, of course, that last lap.
Well, at the start, it was a very, very good start. I was expecting a decent one so I could just get side by side, but turns out I had like a 10 times better start than I wanted. So that really shot me up into P1, which was really good for me. I think my main focus, because I know Brad well, and we didn't get a chance to VC in the race, so I was just hoping the entire race I could get him by, and then me and him would just try and run away. And it turns out it did. Then a safety car came out, which, not trying to start controversy, but I believe he didn't actually crash. I think he spun and then retired on track. But I'm not one to make up theories. And then towards the end, it was very close between all of us. On the last lap, it was me and Shackleton side by side. I got forced off, which, you know what, in the end, it's nothing much to me. I still won the race, so I'm happy. He did a very good job, so yeah. And then he spun around the corner. I mean, that really lit up my eyes, thinking I'm fine. I'm going to win 4 races in a row. And turns out I did. I'm very happy about it.
I said 3 and 3. That's my bad. It is 4 and 4, isn't it? Unprecedented. So that's my bad. But anyway, well, I needed to update my notes. Never mind. But there we go. I hope I haven't ruined the moment too much. I got caught up in that last lap action. But there we go. And that's my bad. Anyway, I've had worse.
So you didn't forget about my sprint win as well.
Oh, are you counting the sprint win?
I say half a win.
Oh, so it's not. Are you saying it will be 5 and 5 with the sprint win, or 4.5?
You know what? I'm gonna raise my ego and say 5 for 5.
Oh, that's my bad. Oh well. Anyway, these things happen, you know. Anyway, but yeah, it certainly did look like a good race from your end. Which driver was it, by the way, that you were accusing of retiring on track?
I believe it was one of the Saubers of Jody. He, I think he spun in turn 1, and I saw yellow flags come out, and he was sat there for a while. And I saw his car moving just before he retired, so I'm not gonna say that he crashed out or he didn't. It's not my business.
I can tell you categorically he did actually crash out on that one. He span out in the first corner, lost his front wing end plate, then trying to turn back round, going at about 15 miles an hour, he hit the tyre barrier and his left front came off. So
oh wow. All right.
it was EA rather than his fault, but anyway, it is what it is.
Thought it was Crashgate at first.
Oh yeah, well, wouldn't have worked because his teammate finished second to last. Or actually, may well have been. No, he was second to last ahead of Connor. So yeah. Anyway, thank you for joining us this evening. Congrats on 4 and 4, not 3 and 3. And until next time, we'll see you around.
Thank you. See ya.
I suppose we've got to do it. I suppose we've got to talk to him. Fine, Kyle, podium, talk to me.
Yes. Mate, you know what? I knew I had pace this week, and I don't know. I'm not usually that good at Brazil, but I found a really good setup. I'm not gonna lie, I stole it from Andrea Chenkovan. But I knew I had pace, so then quali just didn't really go very well. And then at the start of the race, I selected mediums, but I think I was also concentrating on this whole stream thing, so I didn't actually accept the medium strategy. I left it. I went back and I started on softs. So at that point, I'm thinking this race is cursed. Started off quite well, obviously off the start because they're softs. Then I'm getting a bit of a juddering on the screen, and I'm like, okay, great. So that ended up making me go deep into turn 1. Kind of messed me up, and it went on for a couple laps. So eventually, when I was kind of in a bit of my own space, I was like, I'm going to see if I can see what's going on. So I open up the program to check my temps. Temps are fine. I don't know what's going on. I go back into the game. Game's perfectly fine. All I needed to do was minimize, reopen. Game was fine. So, but by that point, I was far too behind. So I was like, you know what? Look, I've got the pace, but I've just cursed this race. Then the first safety car comes. Obviously, I kind of played it safe, went hard with everyone else. I did think about the new mediums, but I thought I'd go hard with everyone else. And that's when obviously I was able to show that I did have the pace. I was sticking with, I think it was Jack and, well, actually, Daniel kind of ran away, and then Jack got past me, but I was able to stay with Jack, and Jack dragged me back up to Daniel. Obviously, my biggest competitor for this season, so at the moment. So quite happy with that. Then Jack had his incident. Second safety car, I had the fresh mediums. I think everyone obviously probably went on to use. I assume they didn't have any fresh sets. I could be wrong. And yeah, I just after I got past Andrea Jenkovan into turn 1, and obviously he came back past me, but I had the pace to stay with the top 4. I knew everyone behind me had penalties anyway. I just had to not get penalties. Apart from obviously Ethan, but I assumed Ethan would come flying past on his softs. But I don't know. I don't know what his setup was like, but he was just so much slower on the straights. Like he'd have DRS and still be slower. So I just figured, you know what? let's take fourth position. I'm going to stick with the pack. Got a good battery. Keep my battery charged. Stay behind everyone, and potentially there may be an incident towards the end of the race. And there it was. Yeah, obviously Chenkovan had his issue. I snuck into P3 and I was 3 tenths off the win. I was really hoping I'd saved enough battery to at least get P2, maybe the win, but just wasn't enough at the end there. But I mean, I'm very happy with that. That's the best race I've probably done in like the last 2-3 seasons. So extremely happy with that.
Yes, I mean it was certainly an incredible race, and it was right. Okay, this is going to sound mean. It wasn't a shock to see you up there, but it was certainly unexpected. And
you know what? I've struggled. I have struggled this season. At the earlier on, I literally said I'm getting a nosebleed because to my brother. I'm getting a nosebleed. I don't know why I'm so high up. And then when I realised I was staying with them and I wasn't, they weren't losing me. Like we had the pace. I was on pace. I was like, I knew I had the pace for this track. I just had to be in the train. Yeah, when I was outside the train after my issues at the beginning, there was no closing it back down. But every time I was in a train, I was able to show that I had the pace with everyone else. And you know, it is a shame to be 3 attempts off on probably my only opportunity to get a win this season. But you know what? Yeah, I was happy. I genuinely cannot tell you why I had pace here. Brazil's never really been a good one for me either. So I'm not sure what's caused me to have good pace. I think it probably was mostly down to this setup. But yeah, I'm extremely happy. I mean, Dan Riley, I think had a shocker down to like P5, 6, I think. So that's great for that. I don't really understand why Dan Riley went so slow into the pit entry. I was asking him about that in the waiting room, and he was like, "I'm just being cautious." It was like, but there are people behind you, so that's why obviously I overtook him into the pit. Don't know how I got ahead of Ethan in the pits as well, but I think they must have double stacked. So yeah, no, things on my way. Without that safety car, you know, I would never have caught back up. So I'm happy to show that I've still got a little something in me. It might not be every single week, but I've got some skill in me still.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a positive to know you got something like that going on. But yeah, it was certainly a promising result. Are you looking for the last 3 rounds of the season to try and do something better, or do you reckon that's you done now?
You know what? I'd hope so. I mean, I don't tend to the high speed track sort of Qatar. I can't remember there's another track I forgot. I'm doing Abu Dhabi at the end. What?
Vegas.
Anyway, Vegas, that's the one. Those like the ones with less sort of bends in, I don't tend to do as well. I'm not sure why. I might be able to show a little something. I mean, Qatar's probably going to be there's probably going to be a few penalties. You know, if I could do a repeat today, like I did today, and not get any penalties, because a penalty today would have meant Ethan would have been ahead of me. So, and even Chenky actually. So both Ferraris. So I was quite happy to not have one. So if I can repeat that, I might get lucky. Vegas potentially. I think we've only ever done it in the league once, so I don't really know what to expect. And Abu Dhabi, look, I do tend to go okay there. I don't think I've ever won. I don't think I've ever got a podium there either, actually. But yeah, I think you know what, I would love to hope. Yeah, it is possible. I think it is possible. I'm not going to rule it out, but it's going to be difficult. But I think my goal it is just Dan Riley. I know we've obviously lost the chance at the team championship, but I feel like we knew that end coming into this race anyway. So yeah, you know, if I get another podium, P2, even a win, that'd be great. But you know, I'd be happy with just staying ahead of Dan.
Yeah, even with one championship at an end. I mean, one's still on technically, mathematically, but it won't stop any of the drivers scrapping out. And well, we've seen that with George Chapman 4 and 4. Just an incredible drive to finish this season off. What to expect at Las Vegas? Carnage, 0-0 wings, and well, some drivers who may well be losing them as well. It's a track that certainly advertises itself for that sort of thing, but that is going to be the end of your broadcast for the 11th round of your APC season. See you again same time next week, and until next time.
And we're underway and racing. Stay on the brakes, goodness me, what a launch! The outside of turn 1 and takes the lead of the race.